Hey everyone, this is a loser here, bringing you a battle against one of the best UU players, someone who peaked at number 4 on the ladder. He's no stranger to this YouTube channel either. So, right from the start, we've got some predictions. I bring out Slowbro instead of Crobat, because I predict this Rhyperior as a lead, and I do get it right. Usually, Rhyperior runs Earthquake, Rock Blast or Stone Edge, Dragon Tail or Protect, and Stealth Rock. And my Slowbro is actually Choice Spec, so this is a pretty good matchup for me. Kyrk takes some time to think, and I'm expecting him to switch out. I go for Surf because the only thing on its team that resists it is Reuniclus, and it will KO if he stays in. And then this happens. So for once, I'm the one who gets surprised by a less popular set. Judging from the damage, I know he's banded because I do have max HP investment and there's no Life Orb recoil. I think about a bit about who to bring in to make up some ground, and I decide on Rhyperior to set up some Stealth Rocks, as I notice his team has 2 flying types and no spinner, so that will be a big help to me later on in the game. Kyrk obviously switches out because even if he stays in, Megahorn will probably only hit for about 40%. Here, I try to figure out what set his Reuniclus is first, and I decide to stay in, predicting him to predict me to switch out. I really want to switch in Heracross, and I'm hoping he'll think the same and predict with Psyshock. Unfortunately for me, he ends up covering my other 2 options, which are to stay in or make the safe switch to Snorlax. Looking at Earthquake's damage, I know he's physically defensive, and since almost every Reuniclus runs Recover, Rhyperior isn't going to be able to beat him. Rhyperior will be useful as a replacement counter to Gallade since I've lost Slowbro now, so I want to keep it alive. Kyrk knows that I'm going to switch out, so he's going to predict Heracross coming in and use Psyshock. I decide to play it safe though and send in Snorlax. Unfortunately, since my Snorlax isn't banded, it's not going to be able to 2-hit KO. The situation is actually not that easy for Kyrk, because he can't just sit there recovering continuously, or else I'd have an easy switch into Heracross, which is what I wanted from the start. Otherwise, after recovering to full, I can hit him back down to 2/3 health, and since we speed tie, he has to risk firing off an attack and then putting Reuniclus in potential kill range, as we see here. He now makes a nice switch to Rhyperior. I could have brought in Heracross, since he wanted to risk the speed tie he'd recover, but even with Band, Heracross doesn't have a guaranteed 1-hit KO after Stealth Rocks on Rhyperior. I bring in my Heracross now, predicting Earthquake, which is a pretty risky switch because I'll die to Stone Edge, but it does pay off. As Kyrk realizes, I am banded, so my close combat is going to KO him. Since both Heracross are Scarfed and Scarf close combat does about 60%, he stayed in expecting to tank a hit and KO back. Now he's obviously going to send in something that resists fighting, so then either Zapdos or Gallade, and he's going to go with Gallade. I'm definitely going to switch out here because my Heracross is still useful against his team, but I'm not certain what set his Gallade is or what move he will use. Crobat would be nice, but he can cover both Crobat and if I stay in with Cycle Cut. On the other hand, he can cover Magneton and Rhyperior with Drain Punch. I bring in Rhyperior to be safe as it has a massive defense stat. Here he misplays, obviously thinking he could KO with Drain Punch, but Solid Rock keeps me alive. I do leave Rhyperior in to die, but only because I didn't know his Zapdos set. Anyway, I bring in Crobat for the revenge kill. Kyrk knows Brave Bird is coming, and I should have predicted him to make the switch, but I thought it was just too risky because there was a chance he could stay in as death fodder. Judging from the damage to his Zapdos, I know he's defensive. I also think that there's no way he'll expect me to stay in, so he will probably go for either Toxic or Roost as he predicts me to switch. So I decide to stay in and use Toxic, although I take some time to think because this is a pretty big gamble, and I could lose Crobat if he uses Thunderbolt. He does end up roosting, so my gamble pays off here. Toxic was crucial because otherwise he can alternate between Roost and Thunderbolt and beat both my Magneton and Snorlax. Now I send in Snorlax to take the Thunderbolt. The crit didn't really matter since he can't KO after leftovers anyway. Now he has to switch in Reuniclus because he doesn't really have another safe switch in. I predict he's going to use the Stealth Rock, so I just stay in, and it works out well for me. If you're wondering, he has Mold Breaker probably to beat Rotom H. Now he sends in Gallade, and I'm just going to leave Snorlax to die. I considered switching in Crobat, but he didn't want to risk it. Gallade actually ended up giving me quite a lot of trouble this match. I do send out Crobat for a revenge kill now, but I think I played a bit too quickly here because Heracross could do exactly the same thing and be more threatening to Zapdos. Since I've already hit Zapdos with Toxic now, Crobat has nothing more to do against Zapdos, so obviously I'm going to switch out here. At this point, the only safe switch in I have is Magneton, so I am going to make that switch. My Magneton is a homemade max HP, max special attack, modest nature with Eviolite and Analytic, so it'll be able to take a couple of hits. And that's also why the Paralyze here doesn't really matter. I go for the Thunderbolt since he has no safe switch-ins to it, and Kyrk is just going to sacrifice Reuniclus. He sends up Gallade here, threatening Drain Punch. I could have stayed in actually and survived because Magneton has base 95 defense, which plus Eviolite is quite a lot. But I probably couldn't KO back either because Gallade has good special defense and Drain Punch heals. And then he makes a very nice prediction on my Crobat, on the one time I do decide to risk it. So now I'm going to send in Heracross, and I think because only Megahorn can KO Gallade, but he still has Togekiss, which he could switch in. I can't afford to risk Psycho Cut, and Togekiss might get 2-hit KO'd after Rocks, so I still go for Megahorn anyway. He just sends in Zapdos to see what I do, as he doesn't want to risk mispredicting with Togekiss. Here I switch to Magneton because it 4 times resists flying. Aurasphere or Heat Wave would KO, but fortunately for me he doesn't have them. This is an unlucky bad matchup for Kyrk. I later found out from him that he has Nasty Plot, Roost, Hear Bell, and Air Slash for stall breaking, so he gets walled by my Magneton. Fortunately he doesn't flinch me either, although he couldn't flinch me to death probably. I'm going to leave my Magneton in on Gallade to die because I won't risk him predicting Heracross coming in, and there's no need for my Magneton anymore. At this point, we both know the game's over as long as Megahorn doesn't miss, and fortunately for me, I do end up hitting it. So great game, Kyrk. I hope you guys enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed playing.